When you think of Thor, scary isn't normally the first word that comes to mind. But scary can mean a lot of things. There can be like, kind of scary. Or maybe like, scary cool. Or even just, wow, that guy may not look it, but he is literally crazy. And that, my friends, is what we are going to talk about today. Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. I am your host, David Raff. And if you haven't already guessed, we are talking about the top 10 scary Thor alternate versions. If you enjoyed this video, show that like button some love, and don't forget to subscribe to Top 10 Nerds so you never miss one nerdy moment. It's that easy, folks. Alright, with all that being said, let's dive in. Number 10, Hellbound Thor. So, this Thor comes from Earth 5113. In this universe, also known as the Dormammu-verse. Yes, Dormammu, as in the Doctor Strange villain. In this universe, Dormammu is the ruler and has turned a lot of heroes that we know and love into his minions. That includes Thor. Seriously, Thor looks very, very scary here. He wasn't in a lot of the story, but his brief appearance was memorable enough for people to remember how creepy he was. He had his classic suit, but with a demon face and all of his normal powers. Just let that sink in. It's a demon face Thor. Creepy. Number 9, pre-banished Thor. So, okay, let me explain. So pre-banished Thor isn't scary for his look. It's more of his actions. He was a cocky guy that didn't care about anyone but himself. He started wars, killed a lot of people, let a lot of people die. Ultimately, he did pay the price for all of it, but the cool thing about that is that it forced Thor to grow as a character. He has evolved so much over the years and that is really satisfying to read or, even watch in the movies. In the movies, just look at him in Thor 1 versus him in Thor Ragnarok. His journey through those movies has been amazing, and it feels like a completely different character. Even his arc at Avengers Endgame was interesting, showing that even though he's a god, he's not perfect. And even though he was sad and depressed, he was always still worthy, and I absolutely love that. Number 8, Ultimate Thor. I really just think a lot of the Ultimate Universe characters were just crazier than their original counterparts. And Thor, was really different from his original one. All the characters in the universe were just kind of like slightly exaggerated or just slightly crazier versions of themselves. I mean, Hulk ate people in the Ultimate Universe. Luckily, Thor didn't eat people, but he just still wasn't that same guy we know from the main 616 continuity. Number 7, Unworthy Thor. So this version of Thor is more of like a scary, cool kind of scary. Like, you don't want to mess with this guy. He just has that vibe. He had short hair, a massive battle axe, ripped clothes, and one arm. His one arm was chopped off by Malekith, and they replaced it with by Uru. It made him look even just more badass. He even fought Thanos like that in one issue. And the Unworthy Thor has become a fan favorite series because it really broke Thor down and showed the man behind the hammer. Similar to what they did with him in the film Thor Ragnarok. They destroyed his hammer and showed us what Thor was like without it. He needed to realize that it wasn't the hammer giving him his power, but actually himself. Both were really cool stories. If you haven't read The Unworthy Thor, check it out, or if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, watch it, because it's awesome. Number 6, Herald of Galactus Thor. On Earth 717, Thor became a Herald of Galactus, but he made a deal with him, which is why it happened. Galactus ended up going to Asgard, and let me tell you, it wasn't a friendly visit, and Thor quickly realizes that, and they kind of wouldn't be able to stop him. So, Thor decides to make a deal with him in order to save Asgard and the people in it. He makes a deal so that now he works for Galactus. It was an interesting story, but even though Galactus is super, super powerful, I feel like Thor would, of course, want to save everyone, but somehow he would just find a way to stop him without having to serve Galactus for eternity. I feel like that's just the Thor that I think about. Number 5, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill has become a massive fan favorite. He was an alien that was able to pick up Thor's hammer. Of course, he didn't keep it forever and ended up getting his own, but it was a big deal when it happened and no one expected it. And it happened when Nick Fury wanted Thor to check out some kind of alien ship, so Thor went up, saw Beta Ray Bill, the two of them were like, hey, fight. But during the fight, he picked up Thor's hammer. And since then, he's amassed a really big fan base. People really like him. And they still hope that one day we will see him brought to the big screen. He was teased in Thor Ragnarok, so who knows, maybe we'll see him in the MCU. One can only hope, my friends. One can only hope. Number 4, Rogue Thor. This version of Thor comes from Marvel's What If series. It was what if Rogue possessed the power of Thor? In this comic, Rogue absorbs Thor's powers, but by doing so, she ends up killing him, and then proceeds to go on a killing spree, killing tons of heroes and basically anyone that tried to oppose her. But then the spirit of Thor ends up convincing her to use her powers for good. She does. So I guess in a way it ends up working out. I mean, it does kind of suck for Thor. I mean, he did die, and so did a lot of other people. Good thing it was a what-if series, and it didn't actually happen in main continuity, because that would just be depressing. Number 3, Revenger Thor. This Thor comes from an alternate universe, Earth 10011, also known as the Cancerverse, which we talked about earlier with Nova. Thor is part of a team called the Revengers, not to be confused with the team Thor formed in Thor Ragnarok. This one is a corrupt version that resides in the Cancerverse. They are essentially an evil version of themselves and are the exact opposite of the Avengers. And something very interesting happens in this universe. They are eventually defeated, but you will never guess who's the one to do it. Thanos. Yep. Thanos is the one that saves the world in this version by defeating the Revengers. I mean, it's pretty funny and the complete opposite of what happens in main continuity, but I mean, it was interesting to see Thanos on the other side for once. Number 2, Zombie Thor. Zombie Thor comes from the Marvel Zombie series that was written by Robert Kirkman, who of course is famous for creating The Walking Dead. On Earth 2149, a zombie virus ends up infecting almost all of the heroes and villains in the Marvel Universe. Of course, one of those is none other than Thor. All of the heroes were scary as zombies, but Thor was an undead god, and a zombie god is a terrifying sight. Also, since he was dead, he was no longer worthy of his trusty hammer Mjolnir. He ended up creating another one, but I thought it was a really cool little detail, and made for an even more interesting story. Number 1, Venom Thor. This one is terrifying. Like, just when you thought Venom couldn't be any scarier, he merges with Thor to create Venom Thor. Of course, this doesn't happen during the main continuity, but during one of Marvel's What If stories. What if the alien costume had possessed Spider-Man? During that story, Venom takes over Spider-Man, and then Hulk, which is equally terrifying thought, but then after that, it decides to take over Thor as well, and it's terrifying. Like seeing Venom with the hammer and have long hair, it's not a pretty sight. And Venom is super powerful because he retains all the abilities of the people that he has taken over. So he is basically unstoppable at that point. Alright, there you have it guys. The top 10 scary Thor alternate versions. What does your list look like? Let us know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Top 10 Nerds so you never miss one nerdy moment. I'm your host David Rath. Thank you so much for watching.